Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend and also a co-host of our weekly ReelBlend podcast. We are lucky enough to get some amazing guests on the show, and this week we have an exclusive sit-down with It Chapter 2 star Bill Skarsgard. Now, not a lot of people were able to say that, and I'm going to explain to you why. But before we do that, go down and hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, because every time we post a cool clip from the ReelBlend podcast, we want you guys to know about it. Bill Skarsgard, who has played Pennywise the Clown in the two It films, generally does not do on-camera interviews, and a lot of the reasons why he wants to protect himself and his image is because he doesn't want the audience to associate his normal face with Pennywise the Clown. He really wants the villain of these horror films to, stand out and shock the audience and not have Bill Skarsgard out there talking about his process all the time. However, because we are an audio podcast, he was very happy to sit down with us for 30 minutes and talk about all the things that he's not normally able to get into in regular interviews. If you've been able to see It Chapter 2, I want you to go ahead and listen to our interview with Bill Skarsgard. There's not a ton of spoilers. We did try and dance around from all that, so you can still listen if you haven't seen the film yet. If you want to go see It Chapter 2 and then come back and press play on the interview, we'll be right here waiting for you. But until then, here is Bill Skarsgard sitting down with Kevin McCarthy, co-host of the ReelBlend podcast, and you can listen to it right now.
Thank you for taking the time to do this, man.
Of course,
really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
And by the way, your dad's performance in Chernobyl was that show was incredible.
Yeah, it is.
It
isn't it?
blew my mind with that.
Yeah.
What Craig Mazin did with that. I mean, oh my God! Like your dad and Jared Harris, that whole was unreal. So,
yeah, and Johan Renck, the director, is so good and it's so cinematic. I was like, everybody's like, that's really good. I'm like, I was on, you're on your HBO thing, and you're like, I'm like, God, when are you in the mood for great Soviet, Chernobyl? Yeah. But then I watched it, and I'm like, it's so cinematic. It's like it's actually a really enjoyable, pleasurable watch, as well as a heavy, dark theme. But
yeah, I agree. It felt like an entertaining thing. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here. We are in an old house here in LA. This is amazing. I'm here with Bill Skarsgard. We're talking about It Chapter 2. I'm curious, I know you've talked a lot about the design of the character, in certain interviews, but I'm curious how certain choices were made. Where did the voice come from? How did you find his voice?
The voice was, it was sort of a developing thing. Like even when we started shooting it wasn't entirely set. I didn't have it entirely set. Part of what I wanted was this voice to be I was like, or conceptually when I was thinking about it, it's like it could be whatever, and it doesn't have to be consistent. Like the character can be different types and have different voices. I was all he's a shape-shifting monster, so I was very at the beginning it was very the potential of what this voice would sound like was pretty much infinite. And then we kind of ended up, the laugh came before the voice, and this really? So when I had the kind of the laugh and this kind of panicky, angst-driven, hysterical laugh, and then the voice became this kind of crackling, a thing that kind of was built off of the laugh. Yeah.
This is a super random question. I'm curious how they do the drool, like in the sense
of
like
just me drooling.
I know it's you, but what I mean by that is like they cut to you at a certain point, so you have to have it like fall at a certain point in the scene. Like, is it like?
No, it's never planned.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's never
planned.
No.
Interesting.
And part of the performance is not for me. Performing it was never like I never had any kind of cues to hit or anything. It was basically like, all right, I have the character, and then when the scene starts, anything is allowed and anything can happen and will happen, and hopefully the camera will just pick it up on it. So all the drool, it's just happen chance when it happens.
Wild. Now, obviously, the term villain I think is fascinating to me. This particular character is very fascinating, very layered. I'm curious, as an actor, how do you justify his actions? Like, do you because he doesn't think he's a villain. He doesn't think.
Yeah.
So how do you then make yourself okay? I understand why he's doing this. How do you find that?
Well, I think that a pretty good way to start about it is going to something very primal and very animalistic. That it's he needs this to survive. He needs to feed to survive, and you know, he is, as we all are, limited by our own design. You know, he is what he is, and it just happens to be from the perspective of the kids and humanity, a very awful thing that he is, but to himself, this is what he is, and it's normal, and it's a part of a survival mechanism. Now, that being said, I mean, we're also talking about kind of the embodiment of evil in a way, and I was just, you know, building the character, and the performance is just like, okay, what is evil? And to me, it's truly taking pleasure in hurting and suffering and fear. So that was kind of, you know, we can all relate to it in some way. I think, you know, I think everyone has had at one point or another where you might have enjoyed, you know, a remark or, you know, whatever it is, and it's a disgusting part of oneself. And in Pennywise, it's that unleashed. So, you know, if it's picking, it's bullying, it's enjoying all of hurting, and yeah, and that is the performance, the mocking, and he thrives in hate.
The thing that creeped me out the most was seeing Pennywise almost in like minimal makeup. I mean, it's in the trailer. Yeah. That's a great sequence. It kind of reminded me in The Dark Knight when they cut to Ledger for a second without his Joker makeup on.
Right. Yeah.
I was just curious if that, like, did you like doing a minimal makeup? Does the amount of makeup help you get into him more? If you're minimally made up, is it harder to become him?
No, not at all. And you know, did you see the film?
I saw it last night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cool. So I mean, that it was a part. It's partially Pennywise and partially something else, which was fun to explore. And that in of itself, the makeup was, you know, obviously there weren't any paint on, but there was still this bulbous head piece and the bald head and everything, and the eyebrows were accentuated. And I was just I loved the face of that guy. Yeah. So, you know, and actually the only, we didn't have any makeup test for it. So literally the first time I put that on was the day when we shot it. So, you know, and same way as kind of I treated the makeup with the clown makeup the first time was, as soon as the first time I had it on, okay, this is what the character looks like, and now I need to get used to that. So I would just, you know, literally perform in front of the mirror and film myself for the first, you know, tests that we did with the clown makeup on. So like, how does my face translate with this makeup on? And then with the you know, non-makeup face, it was a new guy, and I played around with a few things, and then when we shot it, we just really let loose and explored what that, you know, let that kind of person, or, you know, this kind of more simplified version of Pennywise, or maybe a more a primal version of him. Yeah, it was really fun.
It's a great scene.
Yeah.
Have you ever FaceTimed a friend or a family member in the Pennywise makeup?
Oh, so many times.
Tell me, can you give me like an example?
I FaceTime in the non-pen, like the bald face man as well. Yeah.
Who do you call when that happens? Like, who have you called in the full Pennywise getup?
Well, of course, my girlfriend, my partner. I mean, she's got so desensitized by it that it was just like literally like, hey, how's work? And it's just like, you know, well, you know, I'm just a bit tired today with Pennywise and yeah, I think literally like almost, I think all of my family members, I mean, because it got to the point, I mean, I've been in that clown phase so much and it worked so much that, you know, you end up pretty much calling everyone you know.
I would love to be on the receiving end of one of those calls.
Yeah.
One of our co-hosts, this is a podcast called ReelBlend, and Sean said this great question. He's one of our co-hosts, and he said, you know, when you watch a lot of horror films over the years, Freddy or Jason or different classic horror villain characters, the more the movies go on, it's almost like you almost get rid of the shock value because you know that villain throughout. Mm-hmm. When you step into a sequel, to me, this one is more brutal and more horrifying than the first one in a very good way, in the sense of it works as a surprise. But is that a challenge to step into a sequel and go, all right, the element of surprise is kind of gone now. People know who Pennywise is.
Yeah.
Is there do you have to almost add to it to make it scarier?
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing, and that has been, maybe not a struggle, but it's been a thing that we've been mindful about, that you can't have too much of this monster villain on screen because you lose that kind of mysterious and lethal aspect of it. It's the sort of Jaws phenomenon that you never see the shark, and that therefore it's the more scarier, obviously. And we played around with that, but to me, I think that there's more to Pennywise as a character than just being the shark. Like, there's something. It doesn't necessarily have to be like every time he's on, or for me at least, because I don't find him scary at all anymore, and neither does my family members, since all the Facebook FaceTime calls. But there's something interesting about the character, and maybe you're not terrified every time you see him. The more you get exposed to him, but there's I wanted or I hope that the audience can watch him and kind of be puzzled and like, what's going on here, and there's something unexplainable about what it is, and this kind of force of nature and this maniacal evil thing that is entertaining and in another way where it's not only just a jump scare mechanism. So, and in terms of being more lethal or being more volatile, I mean, it's just what he did in the first one, but more amplified and of course, with the whole spectacle of the ending, so yeah.
It was awesome. Now, the ending is amazing. And this is actually going to run after release, so I might ask some things that might be spoilery, but if you feel uncomfortable talking about them, you don't have to. But I'm curious about, what was the first scene you ever shot as Pennywise and the last scene you ever shot as Pennywise?
The first scene I ever shot was this shot that actually did not end up being in the movie. I think it was literally a one shot in front of a green screen. This was the first day of shooting, and it was for the first one, obviously. And there's the projector scene in the first movie.
Yes.
So there was a version before that where part of it was like the hair started going and the machine started going and then the face started moving. And then the character, or Pennywise, started writing like something, and I started writing in front of the screen where the kids are freaking out. You die if you try, I think. And then they kick it, it shatters, and it continue with the scene as it plays in the movie. But so it was literally a shot of me writing backwards because it was in front of this a glass piece, which was great because like it's not really a scene; it's just a moment, and at that point I was still figuring out the character and all that. And the last thing that I ever shot, I want to say it was the death.
Is it?
Yeah, no, it's actually not true.
Do you still shoot the death, just even if the head's there like that? Do you still shoot that moment?
Yeah, it's all me. It's all me.
Because he's smaller, obviously, in that moment.
Well, it's a funny thing. So it's the face is there, and my body is literally in the set building.
That's cool.
So I'm the mountainous thing or this kind of cavern. My body is behind it, and my face is literally sticking out. And then they have this pancake mold around it, and then it's me. And then we had like a puppet body that was there for reference, but obviously it ended up being that's a CGI effect. But yeah, so that was very weird. So it's all me acting, but just literally with my face. And then we did an additional shoot. A scene that was later added, which is the scene with the little Ben when he's coming out of when Pennywise is coming out of the locker. Yeah. And that we shot, a couple of months back. So that was an additional scene that we added to it, and I think that was the last thing that I did as Pennywise.
So my other co-host Jake, he did this press junket yesterday, and he was talking to Andy. It's interesting because you didn't do a ton of press for the first movie, and I think that was interesting by design because it was more of like because Pennywise is such a scary character. Yeah. If you associate him with you because you look nothing like him, it would take away. Was that something that you wanted to come up with? Jake was asking, was that something you designed? Or like,
for the first one, it was, it was Warner Brothers and the marketing department talked about it, and the producers talked about it, and they talked to me about it. And with the first movie, this is kind of the thing that launched me. I mean, it definitely was in a lot of ways. So there was a thing of like, if the public don't associate the actor with the character, that might be a good thing. That was the reason for it on the first one. And on the second one, I'm still not doing as much as some of the other actors, but we're doing it more. And for me, I mean, I kind of enjoy talking about it. Like this is the last time that you'll see the character, and we're kind of celebrating the launch of it, and saying goodbye to the whole project and role and everything. I'm kind of enjoying being able to talk about it with the separation of not pretending that I'm actually a murderous clown.
Now, this is a question I'm sure actors get a lot about, like, do characters stay with you? But I mean, this is a very layered character. There's a lot going on in that character's mind. Does it ever come back? Not like the murderous aspect of it, but just like the voice. Do you ever like accidentally like think something he would think, or like the voice, like, because you kind of become him in the movie?
Yeah.
Does the voice ever come back by mistake, maybe sometimes, or? I
don't know. Like I not when I'm myself. He never comes out. But I was working on a thing where I kind of changed my voice for another thing that I was doing. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And like the voice kind of almost like, there was a little resemblance of Penn. This character had nothing to do with a murderous clown. So I was like, oh, that's weird. But the voice is so different than mine that even the laugh is too. I mean, everything about him is hopefully a few steps away from me as a person.
Now, this is something I was out there in the first movie. I didn't know this until Andy just told me this today. I didn't know. I thought they were CGing your eye going that way.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, but for people listening right now, he just did that. Is that something you've just been doing since you were... Okay, yeah, it's freaking me out. Have you been doing that since you were a kid? How do you move one eye? I can't do that.
It's a lazy eye, So there's... like when I get tired, it kind of, it goes a little bit, and then I figured out. I mean, I can't remember what age I was, but I was like, oh, I can, maybe I was like 10 or something. I can actually do this whenever I want to, and it kind of became a little bit of a party trick. And then, and I always wanted, like, it's funny because like in the lip thing as well, which is like a.
Wow. That's like freaking me out just to see that in person, by the way.
Yeah, and it's that was something that, my older brother had a kind of a goofy character that he did when we were kids that did this, that had that lip. And
really?
And then I figured out that I could also do it. And it's this thing where like most people don't know how to do it, but like for some reason, like most of my family knows how to do it. My sister can do it and my little brother can do it. It's just like a weird little thing of
Is there a family photo of you guys all doing that together?
There's photos of me and my sister for sure.
Someone please release that.
Yeah. So it's a little Pennywise family. No, but so I have, these things, and I was like, okay, even going into this character, I'm like I always wanted to use them for something, and then I was like, for this one I could literally use the lazy eye, the lip, like everything, and just kind of make that as transformative and weird and scary and strange as you can get. So it was kind of the perfect role for me to just use all of these little skills that I've always had.
As a wrap me up, I think you're a great actor. I love doing Atomic Blonde. I think you do great work.
No, thank you very much.
I think this character, clearly there's a lot of acting going on there. And I'm just blown away. Like, Tim, when I meet you in person, just obviously a very completely different individual in a good way, obviously. But I'd be curious, because I was reading when the first one came out, you didn't want to reproduce Tim Curry's It was Pennywise. It was a different Pennywise.
Yeah.
What if those two met? What do you think those two Pennywises... I mean, in a hypothetical nerdy situation.
Right.
But they're very different. You make yours your own, but could you imagine those two Pennywises, like, somehow...
hanging out?
Yeah, like, what would they do?
Yeah. It's a scary thought, isn't it? What would they talk about, right? There's what we played into with our version of the character was obviously something, more gross, more disgusting, more primal, this kind of monstrous, thing. And Tim Curry did this kind of, wonderful sort of vaudevillain kind of type of old school clown performance.
Yeah.
which might be in a lot of ways truer to the book, you know, or maybe the idea of the clown is more of that, but you know, we were doing the new movie and we had to like, all right, what are we can't obviously reproduce what is already done, and nobody can do the Tim Curry performance as good as he did, so we just had to go something else, you know, so some different direction with it, and became this, you know, maniacal freak of a you know, being.
Yeah, I was waiting for Stephen King to turn into you at some point in the movie. I was like, I bet you Bill wanted to be in that scene. I bet you he did.
Yeah, I still haven't met the man.
Oh, you haven't met Stephen King?
No. So it's so
Can
strange.
someone get this done? I mean, you're in it.
I know. And he was on set, you know, obviously, but I wasn't working that day. So
that's amazing. I've never met him either, but that's cool. It was awesome talking to you, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Appreciate it.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
We really need to thank Warner Brothers and Bill Skarsgard for allowing this exclusive interview to happen. It was great to be able to get insight into this amazing character, and It Chapter 2 obviously is crushing at the box office too, so hopefully people came out of this and had a chance to sit down and listen to Bill talk about bringing Pennywise to life from the pages of the Stephen King novel that we all grew up on. The full ReelBlend podcast is now up on CinemaBlend's site, so you should go over there and listen to the entire episode, which includes the Bill Skarsgard interview. And of course, if you want to subscribe to the ReelBlend podcast and listen to us on a weekly basis, there is a link in the description. Speaking of subscribing, you're going to go down and hit subscribe on this YouTube page because we are posting videos like this all the time. We want to make sure that you guys see every single thing that we post. So go on, hit subscribe, and turn on your notifications. And I promise you, your life is going to be so much better after the fact.